What the Tech is sponsored by Shutterstock, with over 28 million high-quality photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 25% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech1113.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Major Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by my tag team partner, my curmudgeon of tech.
Wow.
That's how someone described us. He described us as a curmudgeon of tech, which, you know what? Yep. Sometimes we are. Sometimes we are, Paul.
I don't know how you couldn't be a little bitter about things. Just the way the world has gone.
Paul Thurrott's here with me. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm the PS4 announcement, the launch, the 1 million units sold. I want to get into that, but I did want to say I did get a PS4. So I've been getting a lot of tweets from people asking me if I got it. I did get it, but I sold it immediately. I had a guy that contacted me, someone I worked with years ago, and he watches the show, and he said, "Hey, I heard you got it. You pre-ordered. Would you mind selling it? Are you looking to sell it?" And I said, "Yeah, how much do you want to buy it for?" And they gave me a number that I couldn't say no to. I told Paul the number, and you were like, wow.
It's crazy time.
Really crazy, because if you go on eBay, you could get it for about $600 now, $640. You could just buy it right out. This guy offered me over that.
Are these things sold out or something? I mean, is it literally?
They are, yeah. You can't get it. They did say that it's going to be available for the holiday season. They're expecting to have a pretty good stock of it. Yeah. I think it's the initial fear that you're not going to get it for Christmas, because they do this big announcement and there's a crazy rush to buy it, and then it's sold out within hours. But they are going to restock this thing. It's not sold out worldwide.
They haven't stopped making them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I understand. I mean, I you want it and you want to get it, and so I guess if you wanted it so bad, you could have pre-ordered it. But go on.
So I got it, and he contacted me and asked me if I'm gonna get the Xbox and if I would sell him the Xbox. I don't know if I should.
Yep. Also, sell the Xbox for a similar dumb amount of money.
Less than that. I'll tell you, it's $700.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of money.
It is, but will I be able to get the Xbox right after? So if I want to go
the way things are going, these things are going to be sitting in stores. I mean, I don't know what the heck's going on with Xbox, but they can't seem to generate good news for themselves. Yeah,
a story came out today that the live streaming aspect of the Xbox One, the ability to stream on Twitch, and I don't know if they were going to do Ustream. It's not available. It's not going to be available till the beginning of... Okay, Paul. I just saw Paul's revising notes.
I finally looked at the notes.
Okay.
So stupid.
I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't go to that.
Yeah.
They said that you're not going to be able to live stream with this thing, and a lot of people are upset over that. To me, it's not really a big deal, because you know what? I'm not a real gamer. But to a lot of people, apparently they're upset, right?
I agree with what you're saying. I also don't care if this thing ever appears. I'm never going to use it. But they said they were going to have this feature, and now they're not. And, they'll have it next year, and I'm sure it will be fantastic and whatever. But the problem is this is just the latest in a long line of promises that have been broken. And this is the PR nightmare that is the Xbox One team right now. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know why they can't pull this stuff together, but that kind of stuff is tough. So, yeah, like you, I don't care personally. I'm never going to use it, but yeah.
A lot of people would. A lot of people do use it. We actually have something called GFQ Gaming, where people on the GFQ network, if they play video games, they could stream on our Twitch channel. So we do that. I mean, I personally don't, but a couple of people that are on the network do it on that channel. And I could see how important it would be to do it in the device itself, because you don't have to get a capture card. You don't have to connect it to the computer. You don't have to, play roulette and guess if it's going to fall on, and be HDCP compliant. You know, you don't have to worry about that. You just stream directly from the device. I see why it's important, but this is just another thing to put in the column of, well, the Xbox is not doing it and the PS4 is. I think for a lot of people, it comes down to that. And we were talking about this this morning before the announcement, and I really want to know, and there's been a couple of people on Twitter, they've been tweeting me and telling me that, you're a little too hard on the PS4, and why don't you like the PS4?
By the way, that is crap.
I don't dislike the PS4.
That is crap. I have been extremely fair to the PlayStation, will continue to be fair to it. If you're going to complain because I complained that everything went wrong at the launch, you have a problem, because everything went wrong at the launch. And as of today, everything's fine. So it's fine. And I wrote a second update where I said, okay, now everything's working. Let's really look at this thing. I have been only fair to this. I'm tired of this kind of weird partisan tech lover baloney that goes on every day on the internet. Like, this is all life or death. It's not. This console's fine. Everything's working. Relax. But you know what? First 24, 48 hours was a freaking disaster. It just was.
And it's expected. I'm not surprised. Are you? I don't think you should be surprised when there's a launch like this.
Right. Wow. So I was a little surprised, honestly.
That it was that bad, the launch.
Yeah, it was way worse than I ever thought it could be. I mean, the first 24 hours or more, actually more than that, through the Saturday night. So first 36 hours or so, couldn't get on PSN at all. And you need to get on PSN to do 90% of what this thing does. I mean, you couldn't do almost anything.
Yeah.
You could play single-player games if you bought them on disc, because, of course, if you didn't, you couldn't get them.
Well, you couldn't do the updates either, that initial update. Yep. And I know people that bought it and had to do the update. It took them about 12 hours to do the update.
Oh, yeah.
Even when they were able to connect.
For all the years that Sony's been doing in consumer electronics, God, they just have no clue how to... It's like the simplest things, like handling errors, what to do when the connection doesn't connect. It just doesn't do that well. They throw up a blank blue screen, and you just kind of pray that it's doing something. You have no indication at all what's going wrong.
I'll tell you, one of the most convoluted process that I had to do with Sony was actually buying something with the Sony, I guess, what do they call it? The network, the PSN network. I bought like a retro game on there, but I didn't have enough credits. Yep. Like I didn't. And I couldn't figure out a way to like refill it. Like my credit card was expired in there, and I couldn't figure out how to remove the credit card and put a new credit card.
This will probably never make it into my review, but what you just raised a very legitimate issue, which is related to something I just said, which is that, so again, Sony, despite all these years and years of doing this kind of stuff, they don't have a cause effect kind of thing going on in the system. So, for an example, it will say something like what you're saying, what you're seeing. You don't have enough credit to pay for this item. The credit card you have on file with PSN is expired. Click here to go do the thing. No, they don't have that. I ran into that just today for the 17th or 18th time. What was I trying to do? No, shoot, I'd almost have to look at the UI. I wish I could remember what it was. I went into one of the things, and it said, you can't do this until you configure the time to be configured by the internet.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. And I thought to myself, I distinctly remember configuring the time, and so but then it has this cryptic message. It says, to do this, go to, and then it describes a path to get to this place, which, by the way, was incorrect.
Does not exist.
So when you actually go into system or whatever, with settings, date and time, whatever it's called, there is no option to configure the PlayStation to automatically get the time update from the internet. That's not one of the options. So I went in, I verified that the time was correct and the date and everything. It was all set up, date, handle daylight savings time, etc. I still can't remember what the thing is I was trying to do, though. But whatever it was, I went back to the original thing, same error message, and I gave up. And unfortunately, that's a big part of the PlayStation 4 experience. It's like this, how hard would it be on the system? I mean, if it's not configured to do something, click a button and go to that thing and configure it.
But, Nintendo has had the same exact problem where it's a little convoluted to do things. Like they have a virtual store on the Nintendo Wii U. They have a virtual store, and then they have like the Nintendo store. Mm-hmm. And it's two separate things that they have not combined. Like in order to buy a retro game, you have to go to the virtual store, which is its own app. And it has its own billing system. Like you can't, it's not the same coins. Like if you have your wallet and you could say like, okay, I'm going to put $100 in here and I'm just going to buy all these games whenever I want. Doesn't work like that.
Sure. I don't.
Is it a
system in a while?
Is it a I don't want to say a cultural thing, but is it the way that the Japanese software developers are developing their software?
I'm sorry. That kind of. No, I was going to say it was a Sony culture thing because I just, I'm obviously more of an Xbox guy than I am a Sony guy, but in years of experience with Sony through not just their video game systems, but through multiple versions of their consoles, their handhelds, TVs, CD players, all that kind of stuff. Walkmans. Well, not Walkmans. That's a little unfair. That was all mechanical buttons. But they've never gotten the UI thing down right. It's like they it's like that Sony remote, that's like a foot, tall, and it's got 118 buttons on it, and they're all like the same size, and some of them have little colors on them, and it's like, guys, there's a better way to do this, Maybe there's a happy medium between the Apple TV remote and every remote Sony's ever made. I don't know. There's got to be something in the middle. And I look at the UI on this thing and I think, man, they still, it's simpler than that crossbar, whatever they had, whatever it was called, X Cross, whatever, from PS3. But it's
better than it was.
Yeah, it is. But it's weird, you kind of click around in the UI and you look, you're looking at stuff and you compare it. I've years and years of experience playing with consoles. Again, mostly Xbox, fair enough. But I have certain expectations and everything. Sony has their own music and TV/movie stores, built into the console. Absolutely fine. Why wouldn't they? I don't remember what they're called. It doesn't really matter. But you click on the tile or the icon or whatever you want to call it, and then this giant blank screen loads, and it says, if you had rented or bought any TV shows or movies, you would see them here. And it's like, neat. I mean, why wouldn't you advertise with a beautiful display? I mean, every other online store in the world can provide a presentation of some recent movies that would maybe make you want to rent one.
Yeah.
They don't even do that. And it's like, this thing is so stark. It's really strange. And I do think of this as a Sony cultural thing,
But Nintendo has the same problem. Nintendo.
I just don't know about the Nintendo.
I bought it. I bought the Wii U and I used it for about a week and I played Mario and I beat Mario and then that was it. I mean, it's in my attic now, and my PlayStation's in my attic too because I don't use it.
Which PlayStation? Your 3?
The 3, yeah. I used it 3 times. Maybe 7 times. I've turned it on 7 times since I got it. And I got it on launch day.
Yeah, we never did a Wii U. We got the Wii. I think everyone did. It was like the law for a little while. And, the Wii was one of those things where it was really exciting when people came over. Like the kids' cousins would visit and that the Wii would get carted out. Maybe the babysitter would come and the Wii would get carted out. But day by day, like the kids never went to the Wii. Like they never used it. It was kind of a special event.
I also think the Wii came out at a weird time when we were this multiplayer gaming culture really took off. Especially with the 360, it really took off. And they just weren't prepared for that. And they're still not prepared for it on the Wii U.
Yeah.
But the PlayStation, I feel PlayStation is also lacking the infrastructure and the community that Xbox has been able to create with Xbox Live.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's early days. I was joking with you this morning. I didn't do this I should have done this side by side, but I don't remember the numbers. But you see this in Call of Duty. Like Raphael and I were talking a few months ago about the number of people playing Call of Duty at the time, Black Ops 2 on the PC versus the number of time playing it on the Xbox 360, and it was more than 10 to 1. It might have been 100 to 1. It was amazing how many more were on the 360. I turned on the console this morning. I booted into Call of Duty Ghosts, And I don't have the exact numbers, so forgive me if this is off by some factor, but on the Xbox 360, you will typically see hundreds of thousands of people playing at the same time, at least. And that makes sense because the Xbox 360 is a well-established console. It's all over the world. PlayStation 4 is like 4,700 people.
Yeah.
And they're all there's a heat map of the planet, and the whole planet is dark except for like the East Coast of the United States, a couple people on the West Coast, and then there's like one tiny light somewhere in Asia, like Dubai or something or whatever it was. It's just not out yet, and so it's kind of a tougher audience to try to break through to. Now,
and there's also a good chance that the people that are playing the game bought it on launch day and they're playing it on the 360.
Yeah, of course. Oh, that could be too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously it's going to get better, and I don't have one of the recent Call of Duty games to compare on, say, like a PS3. I'm sure that's not horrible, but man, it was.
But you were having problems connecting to the network, right?
Yeah, it was not the PlayStation Network this morning, thank God, because after all the problems over the weekend, I was thinking, man, like these guys can't get anything right, The error message suggested it was Activision servers. I think that was how it said it. I could get onto Netflix. I could, get into the movie store. So it wasn't the PlayStation Network, at least. But yeah, you still have. And by the way, in playing that game today, and again, I'm not laying blame on anyone's doorstop. I don't know if this is, Activision, the guys behind Ghosts. I don't know if it's Sony. I don't know who to blame. But I can tell you today and yesterday, over a couple of days now, I have seen more lagging. And I want to be clear what I mean by lagging. It's kind of a graphical lagging where the game itself kind of slows down and it starts going to the slow motion mode. I've seen more of that over the last just couple of days than I've seen on the 360 across multiple Call of Duty games over several years now. And so I don't know if it's related to PlayStation Network or I don't know how the connectivity works or, again, or if it's a console, I don't know. But, yeah, I just don't know. I don't experience that on the 360. I just don't. I mean, once every 6 months maybe or something. I mean, it happens occasionally, but
and I think we're going to...
the sheer amount of it is...
We're going to hear a lot of these complaints because it's a new console.
Yep.
There's only a certain amount of testing that they could do internally and whatever small group that they're testing for. A lot of these things are going to come out and they're going to patch them, hopefully. I know that Sony's pretty good with the updates. They update regularly. Let me ask you this, Paul. I guess it's too early to tell because the Sony updates have been atrociously long. I mean, with the PS3, my friend Josh in the chat room, Combs, tells me that the gaming that I do is called the update game. I play the update game constantly, and that's all I play. Where I turn the console on, I do the update, and I turn it off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I've been doing with the PS3 because I haven't used it.
So
I play the update game, but it takes forever to do an update on PS3. But on the Xbox, it's super fast. So I'm curious if they kind of worked on that.
To flip it around to Microsoft, the one thing I will say is I do use the Xbox 360 normally almost every day. It seems like you can't turn on the Xbox without downloading an update. And it seems like you can't run an app on the Xbox 360 without downloading an update. Like these updates happen
all the time,
so frequently. Yeah.
But they're quick.
Yes, they are usually very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, Paul. I want to talk about the 1 million units sold to the end user.
Yep.
But before we do, because I know it's going to become a long discussion, because I do want to compare that to Microsoft and what they're planning. But before we do, we should take a little break and talk about our sponsor, and that's Shutterstock. With over 28 million high quality photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, they're offering a phenomenal deal for our audience: 25% off on a new account if you use offer code WhatTheTech 1113. That's WhatTheTech 1113. I brought up my friend Josh. He's a web designer. He does portfolios for people. He does a lot of graphical work for people, and he's a huge Shutterstock fan. I was just talking to him about this. It's funny how it all ties in, Paul. Look at that. Look at that segue. I'm incorporating other people's experience into the live read. And I use Shutterstock all the time. My wife uses it all the time too. I was talking to him about one of his clients about he had to create a portfolio for some products that they're releasing. And he told me that he went on Shutterstock as an example, rather than creating this graphic that they're going to be using. He grabbed a couple examples of what he kind of sees it as happening, and he created these labels for the product, and he used Shutterstock to use it, and it saved him a lot of work because he had to go and find an image, and he had to modify the image. Instead of doing all that, he just got the vector file from Shutterstock because they offer it to you. He modified it to kind of fit what he wants, and he showed it to them, and they absolutely loved it, and he was able to recreate it to, be perfect for them. This is the stuff that they offer, and if they don't have what you're looking for, they're adding 20,000 images every day. Another thing that I really find helpful is that you're given an allowance of how many things you could download, obviously based on the package, but if you download multiple sizes, it doesn't matter. It just counts as one. So you could download as many sizes as you want, as many different resolutions as you want, and it totally works out. That's Shutterstock.com. Again, 25% off on a new account when you use offer code WhatTheTech1113. That's WhatTheTech1113. I want to thank Shutterstock for supporting What The Tech and, of course, supporting the GFQ network. So, Paul, let's go right into it. 1 million units sold to the end user.
Before we jump into that,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It occurs.
Go ahead. Take your time.
We've complained here a lot about the PlayStation 4, and I do want to provide a slightly more nuanced view because the console, by and large, is fine. It's I like it quite a bit. I have to say, going into Call of Duty each day and playing that game, which I had been playing on the 360, the experience is basically identical. Is identical, actually, for all intents and purposes, other than the differences with the controller and so forth. I just want to make sure that, because I know people are going to freak because we're, complaining about this, and that's
no. I want to tie all this in to the argument where people are saying, why don't you like it? For me, once we because that's part of this. Why don't I like it?
I think that there is the one thing I'll say about this is Microsoft quite clearly is making a big push into more general entertainment, right? The Xbox One is going to be a great video game console, I'm sure. I mean, we'll find out soon enough. But I think a big part of the vision for that device is this central entertainment console thing that sits in the living room.
And the pass-through, the reason why it has a pass-through is, that's pretty much a prime example of what they're looking to do.
So you do everything through the 360.
Everything through the 360. And I've been a huge advocate of the point that these devices have to have a pass-through system. It has to have both HDMI in and HDMI out. The Google TV that I have is a piece of junk. I know it's a piece of junk, but it's convenient. Because I don't have to go to input 1 and input 2. If you're in the living room, which most people are putting this thing in their living room, I'm more inclined to interact with their interface if it's always on.
So, yes, okay, fair enough. The only thing you're right, and that's probably this bigger audience, people who would want that kind of thing. But I think as a gamer, the one thing I sort of appreciate about the PS4 is that it has a few entertainment things. There's 7 or 8 apps. It has like the big ones like Netflix and Hulu Plus. It has Sony's entertainment stuff, of course. But really, there's not a lot going on in the console UI. It's pretty much dedicated just to the games. It's about games, by and large. And the big advantage that both the PS4 and the Xbox One will have, and I'm guessing on the Xbox One side because I haven't tested it yet, but we know that this functionality is built in, is the ability to instantly go back and forth between things, right? That you can be in the middle of a game and hit the PlayStation button, go back to the home screen, and you can do something else. And then you can select the game again and go right back to the game. And there's no pausing. There's no loading. There's no anything. You could be in the middle of a multiplayer game. I mean, you're able to stand there and do nothing, and you probably get shot. But you can go do something else. And that was today on the Xbox 360 or the PS3 or whatever, that is not possible. These things are really single-tasking devices. They can't do a bunch of different things at the same time. The PlayStation 4 can't do like 8 things at the same time. In fact, it can pretty much do 2 things at the same time from what I can tell, depending on what you're doing. But it's enough. It's the ability to do something else. And I think that's huge. And so whether you're going to end up with a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, honestly, in some ways, the biggest single advantage has nothing to do with graphics or sound or the types of things we typically associate with new video games. It's like multitasking. Like multitasking in some ways is kind of the killer feature.
Yeah, Colm in our chat room has it, and he says that the speed there's a obvious difference in the speed where when with the installs, the menu, the app switching, it's a lot quicker. And you know what? It has to be. I mean that's not part of the argument. What people are asking me is, how come you're saying that you want the Xbox over the PS4? And the reason is I'm not a gamer. I'm not. I think if you're playing games, if you're buying this product just for the sole purpose of playing a game, I don't think it really matters which one you're buying, other than the titles that are
like.
The titles that are associated to it.
Right.
I think that's when it really matters. But if you're not really crazy about that, if you're playing games in general that are on both platforms, you know what? It's the same exact thing. Forget about the specs. Forget that the PS4 has, a little bit more RAM and whatever the spec difference is. That's really not going to make a difference in the long run. So if you're a true gamer, it doesn't really matter. I think it's the same exact thing. Now, I would prefer the Xbox because Xbox Live, in my opinion, is a far better multi player platform than PS4 is up and PS3 is, and that's my experience. It could be totally different. My experience is very small because I don't really play that often. But for someone like me that likes to play games every now and then, but I love the entertainment stuff, I love the app stuff, I love the the little tiny game purchases from Xbox Arcade. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge Castle Crasher fan.
Well, the Xbox One will also have that kind of multitasking to the next step where you can have two things on the screen at the same time.
Sure.
And depending on what you're doing, that might be interesting. And
that's why I'm leaning towards the Xbox One. The other thing is, my wife doesn't really play video games, but the fact that she doesn't have to go from input 1 to input 2, to her, that she I was just talking to her about this. She said, you know what, I kind of would pick up the controller and be like, oh, okay, I could do this because I know how to turn it on.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, that's a difficult process. And, I get the emails from people saying, you know what, you're absolutely right. My mother has no concept of this, and that's why she likes Google TV, because it's always on. And other people are saying, well, that's stupid. Just hit the input button or the source button, and you'll get there. You have to dumb it down and make it as simple for people as possible.
They also talk, one of the discussions around these consoles has to be about those online services and how, on the Microsoft side, you have to have an Xbox Live Gold subscription to do so much. And on the PlayStation side, I think you basically just need PlayStation Plus to do multiplayer gaming. I think the other stuff you just kind of get. And of course, PlayStation fans, rightfully so, will point to that as an advantage of that platform and so forth. And it is, but I don't actually think that that's how people make that decision. I don't think a lot of people will hear, well, you get more free from the service, on PlayStation. I think it really does boil down to other factors. In the quality of the stuff that's available on Xbox is a big deal. I think it's a big deal too. But
I can't wait for the comments to come in like, "Oh, Xbox One sucks" or "PS4 sucks." Yeah. I'm all about whatever. And I who was it? I got a message from someone. They said Xbox One is going to fail, and I said, "According to who?" And they said, "According to me." I was like, "Okay, well, whatever." So let's talk about the numbers. 1 million units sold to the end user. I found it funny that they said the end user because pretty much everything was sold anyway. I don't think there's anything in stock right now.
We live in an era. Again, this has to do with the comment I made early on in the show where, people are so partisan about everything. They want to pick everything apart. And so, Microsoft will announce some sales figure and someone will inevitably come up and say, yeah, but that doesn't mean they sold them to end users.
So now we have to explain
I think the distinction is important because, and I think Sony did that on purpose, said it the way they said it on purpose because they want to make sure that people understand this is 1 million devices in the hands of users, that on that first day, 1 million people went to stores or maybe ordered them online or whatever and bought them and brought them home
and that's a great number. That's a phenomenal number.
Online. I don't know what they did, but they tried.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal number. That's impressive.
It's better than any PlayStation launch. I don't remember the number. I don't know if you have the numbers in the notes or somewhere.
I don't. I
want to
couldn't
say
actually
that
find it.
PlayStation 3 It was some number of months. I think it was 3 months or so or something before they hit 1 million. So big difference.
So what does this mean for Microsoft now?
Yeah, I don't know. So Sony had previously announced that they had pre-sold 1 million PlayStation 4s. And I don't know if the millions sales from day one include those. I don't know. They never drew that distinction. Microsoft has never made such a claim, so I don't think they had 1 million pre-orders. I think they had fewer than 1 million. Microsoft has made comments like, they had the day one editions they made. They've sold out of those apparently. We'll see. I mean, it's going to be.
I mean, do you think it's going to be 1 million units?
Well, I don't think that 1 million units when, like just the pre-sale ones.
No, like the first day, like the 20 in the first 24 hours. Is this something that
I expect Microsoft not to say a number, unless it's over 1 million.
Yeah,
they'll say it's sold out. The important number is going to come from companies like NPD, which is not worldwide but is US based, which is fine because these consoles are essentially launching in North America, at least in Sony's case, just did. So there's still going to be some interesting comparisons to be made between sales of these consoles in the United States and then worldwide too. But NPD is very, very accurate, and I'm very curious to see what they say because November, December, January, very telling for how these things are doing. And so we'll see. So we know that for most of the past few years, with the exception of, I guess it was September, that the Xbox 360 was the best-selling console. For some reason in September, it was actually the PS3, if you can believe that, but whatever. And so, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I also think that this is the first time that a lot of people are buying either or because it's coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I know, a lot of gamers that I know have both a Xbox and a PlayStation 3, and they bought them both on launch days. When the Xbox came out, they bought that, and when the PS3 came out, they bought that. I don't see that this time. I see a lot of people that are split in the middle. Some people are buying the PS4, and some people are buying the Xbox. I don't know a lot of people that are buying both, so that may affect the number for Xbox.
Well, remember, buying both would require you to spend over $1,000.
Yeah. $1,000 over 2 weeks is a lot of money compared to $1,000 over, a year and a half.
That's before any games.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money. So, yeah, not a lot of people can be buying both.
I don't know. I mean, it would be very disappointing to see a very low number for Microsoft, but it's hard to speculate. Also, you got to remember, the iPad came out too. How much did that affect the sale numbers?
Sure.
2 iPads came out. The iPad Mini Retina and the iPad Air came out a week before the PS4 launch. Would those people have bought a PS4? Right. There's a lot of that happening. Do you think it's going to be a neck and neck thing for this generation as well compared to what it was last time? I think 78 million.
By the way,
units?
last time this current generation is neck and neck. They both sold about, well, actually it wasn't the Wii one, but the Wii won kind of a long time ago and then died off. I mean, the Wii hit 100 million. I think it was 105 million units. Sony PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 are both roughly 80. Yeah. So,
what was the original Xbox number?
Oh, it was very low. It was. I wrote an article about this. I'd have to look it up.
Compared to the PlayStation 2.
Oh, not even close.
Yeah,
not even close. In fact, when did I write about this?
I want my Sega Dreamcast. That's what I want.
Yeah, I made the case last week that the video game market, such as it is, the dedicated video game console market, is much smaller compared to other entertainment than it was years ago. And so, obviously, maybe not obviously. So the best-selling PlayStation was the PlayStation 2, 155 million units. The original was 102.5. And then the PlayStation 3 is about 80. And the PlayStation 3 will keep selling, I guess. But I don't think any of us expect it to go up more than another couple million or so. It's not going to, it's not going to be a big deal. The original Xbox was only 24 million units. And so that went up against the PlayStation 2. So you can see it's got its, ass handed to it. It wasn't even close. That's by a factor of about six to 1.
And nobody understood what they were trying to do at that point.
The interesting thing about the first Xbox is that console technically is very much like the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. It was basically a PC.
Yeah.
Right. PC components of the day, but it was basically a PC. The Nintendo, of course, and the Wii is the weird exception because all of these consoles in some ways have been going down over the years, but the Wii kind of blows that out of the water because, of course, they sold about 105 million of those. But before that, it was like they were nosediving. From
I
NES
think it
to
was
Super NES to Nintendo 64 to GameCube, it was like down, down, down.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that skip the GameCube, but with the Wii U is fascinating too because it's exactly like the Wii, but a little bit better.
And that thing has sold nothing.
And it sold nothing, but you know why it sold
billion.
nothing? It sold nothing because of the titles. They have not released any original titles, and it's amazing to me that this is the problem. It's not that the console's not good. I actually think it's a pretty decent console. They didn't have any... they've only had Mario. Mario's come out. Metroid has not come out. Zelda has not come out. They just redid a Zelda game, but really, it's not an original game. So they've only had one original title, and Zombie U, which forget about that. So they've had one major player in the last year and a half that this thing has been out, and it's been Mario. They have not released any other. Where's Metroid? Where's Zelda? They have not released it, and that's a major problem. Super Smash Brothers, another major title for them. They have not released it.
Right.
So their biggest problem is, here's the console, and people are saying, like, we want the games. Give us the games. No, we're not giving you the games. That's a major problem. I can never see Sony
I don't
doing
see them
that.
coming back from this. The problem is that if in the coming year, if they deliver these latest versions of Mario and Zelda, whatever, and people still don't show up, which I really don't think they're going to. I don't see them breaking out of this. Hopefully what will happen is Nintendo will begin to target other consoles and devices too, right? iPads and so forth, with their games. I mean, what Sega did. I mean, Sega completely left the hardware market, of course, but you can. It's weird. The Nintendo Wii gave Nintendo another lease on life. Of course, it's the only non-Sony console to ever sell 100 million units. It was such an aberration, And as we discussed earlier, I really, and I've said this many times, I really feel like most Wiis, for the lifetime of those devices, sat around and did nothing. Like I don't know how they sold so many of those things.
I think it was inexpensive too. That also played a huge factor because it was pretty cheap. Actually, you know what? That's a big lie too. It's not that cheap. It ended up costing like $400 for the stupid thing because you have to buy the controller. They make all their money from the add-on. So it's like, what is it? Like
it was kid friendly, obviously.
Yeah, it's kid friendly. And I think it was like $249.
Not HD at a time when HD TVs were taking off in a huge way, which is so strange. I think it might have just been that the game for a standalone console, which is obviously that you could run Netflix on it, but it was a pretty terrible disk-based thing. But primarily a video game machine. It was cross-generational, and I think that might have helped it a little bit, right? Whereas, the consoles we're talking about today, the 360,
it's very complex.
Xbox One. What's that?
It's complex. It's not a easy thing
They're for
people
hardcore
to grasp.
gamers,
Yeah.
And in the case of the Xbox One, if you want to look beyond hardcore gamers, the other thing you have to remember is this thing costs $500. It's really expensive. It's really expensive.
So what are you predicting, Paul? If you were to throw out a number right now on how many units that you think they're going to sell, the first 24 hours.
Lifetime?
No. The first. Both. Give me both.
Well, Microsoft and Sony both are talking about the lifetime of these consoles and how they expect these things to go out. I think the way technology goes is the lifetime of platforms goes down, not up. And so when you look at something like the original Xbox was in market for 4 years? The Xbox 360 was in market for, has been in market so far for
6.5.
8 years, I think.
Is it?
2005 to 8 years. Active, they're going to keep selling it, but 8 years. So they doubled it, right? I don't think this one's not going 10 years or 12 years.
That was Sony's plan, right? Sony wanted this device. The PS3 was supposed to be a 10-year device.
It was a supercomputer.
Yeah. 8 cores. The military was using it.
It was based on Cylon technology. But there's no way. There's just no way.
You're going to see it. 2023.
Yeah. So no. I think the life cycle of these things is going to be cut in half. I think that's the way this goes. I don't think we're ever going to see consoles like this ever again, because the way technology is going is this stuff will happen in the cloud by and large next time.
Yeah, you know what I do see happening? I do see them re-releasing these with, minor changes. So maybe a different GPU, maybe a bump in the CPU specs, getting smaller, getting lighter. That's going to happen as far as these devices evolve, but I don't think we're going to have these, oh my God, it's happening. Here's another big device. Because you're right, everything's going to the cloud. In other words,
there won't be like a PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
What they need to get is the kind of versionless online services where it's a subscription-based thing, and they can add features as much as they want, and the thing just keeps getting better and better. You're not stuck with this kind of hardware. The way that the video game market has worked traditionally, and I really think this is the end of it, is that these launches happen. It's so weird. Like, no major titles launch on either console, right? They don't have any of the franchise games.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Maybe one.
Not really. No real tier A kind of game, but whatever. And the reason is the developers who make these games don't want to release them day one because they don't know how to use this thing yet. Yeah. They can't take advantage of all of the advanced features. So a year down the road, 2 years down the road, people are going to get up to speed. Developers are going to get up to speed on this stuff, and the games are going to get better. And that's the way the consoles have always gone. So if you buy a 360 today, graphically, the games you're seeing today are as good or as better than they've ever been because they really have figured out how to take advantage of the hardware. I don't think that's going to be the issue going forward because it's going to be like I said, like cloud service type stuff, and these services like the PlayStation service, the Xbox service, whatever they want to call these things, can just get better all the time without you having to buy. You'll be subscribing, you'll have to keep paying, of course, but you don't have to be limited to the set box.
Well, the 360 was a perfect example of, from the time that this thing was created to what it is now, it is a totally different device. I mean, it's unrecognizable. True. They have changed the UI to the point that it is a different console.
Yep.
So the point that you're not getting, it lasts 8 years because it's not the same device from 8 years ago. Maybe there's been 3 of these. I think there was 2 major revisions, right, or 3 major revisions to the UI.
Oh, more than that.
I'm talking but major changes.
Yeah. Like the blade.
The blade, yeah. So
they went to it was kind of a weird, I don't want to call it 3D, but it was like a shuffling kind of card kind of effect.
Yeah.
Then they went to a sort of a simple media center type of tile outlay, and then they have like the, the Metro style view. Yeah. So at least 4.
Okay. So technically, you're talking about 4 different devices. 4 different interfaces, 4 different experiences from this one device.
Imagine if they weren't limited by the power of the device, right? In other words, like in order to get the ability to do 2 things at one time, to multitask, you need a completely different device. The ability to run 2 things on screen at the same time, completely different device. In the future, if you're just subscribing to the service, those things happen on the back end, and they can be added at any time. And I think that's whatever. This is kind of beyond the point of these consoles, but I think that's where it goes. And so I don't think either one of these consoles sells anywhere near 80 million units for starters. I don't have any idea or way of knowing what they might sell. But as I noted in the article I'm referencing, what this basically means is we'll never see an Xbox console that has 100 million units sold ever.
That's not going to happen.
It's just never going to happen. We hit 80 with this one. This is going to be the high point. It will be less for this one, but then it kind of won't matter because the number that really matters, and I think the number that matters really to Microsoft, is those people that pay them every month.
Yeah.
The subscribers. And that number is actually not very high, but
what is that number?
It goes up. I'm just going off the top of my head. I want to say it's in the 40 million range.
Okay. So let's say half of all people that are using an Xbox are actually that have purchased an Xbox are paying.
I should, rather than just say a number.
I think you're right. I think it is 40. No, I think it is in the 40. That's 40. I saw 40.
It's 48 million members. So actually, the number of people that are paying them is much less than that because that's Xbox Live and Xbox Live Gold.
Okay.
And so if you want, I don't know if you want to say 50-50 or how you want to split that up, but
so 20 million.
It is potentially there are as few as 20 to 25 million people actually paying Microsoft for Xbox Live. I bet it's a little higher than that. I bet the percentage of people paying for Xbox Live Gold is a little north of 50%, but let's say 25, 20.
I mean, but Paul, that's still a significant number. 25 million people are paying monthly to use this device.
Yeah, no, it's not shabby. I mean, but what you want to get to is 100 million. You want this to be like a significant business.
So how do you do that if you're selling less?
Eventually, what you're going to do, and I think both these companies are both going to have to do this, is you basically make this a kind of platform agnostic service where you can play the games on a variety of hardware wherever you are, however you want, that kind of thing. And I think that's where this stuff goes. But in the meantime,
it's not that. We're still doing this.
Let's not worry about 10 years from now. I mean, today we have these consoles, and like I said, you look at this thing, and I think, this is such an anachronism in a way. First
still
of all,
the old way of doing
it's a PC
things.
platform. Yes. So inside of this box, not that different from the first Xbox. It's more elegant and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, the notion of a box that you connect controllers to and you connect it to a display.
Yeah.
This goes back to the original Odyssey or the Atari 2600 or to the television or whatever you want to say. I mean, honestly, this is not all that different. It's gained connectivity. It runs non-game apps, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, that stuff is big, but as far as this thing as a thing, it's the same thing that I had when I was a kid.
Microsoft really has this potential to expand the live experience, and something we spoke about this a while ago. How the original Xbox, when it came out, the concept behind it was that you could do cross-platform. So if you're playing a game on a PC, you could also compete with someone on the Xbox. But there was obviously a lag issue, and they had a lot of problems with that. But I do see it. You're absolutely right. I do see that happening where you have this one device and you can play all these games.
Right.
Like look at Steam, for example. Steam is extremely successful at getting people to use their service. And I had a discussion with someone about this, and I didn't know. Whatever game you buy on Steam, you could only use it if you're buying it on Steam. So you're locked into their interface. There's really this concept that you could take that and use it on without Steam. That doesn't exist. You're locked into the Steam interface, and it's on every device. You could use it on Linux. You could use it on Windows, and you could compete with that. I think that's the future of Xbox.
By the way, there are 65 million Steam accounts.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
So it's hard to know what that means, but because you could start an account and never use it again, and whereas an Xbox, well, actually, I suppose if you don't pay for it, an Xbox account probably doesn't expire. But they've had over 6.6 million concurrent players
At the same time.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Concurrent players meaning
people online playing at the same time.
I mean that
I told you there were 4,700 people playing on the same time today on the PlayStation 4, to give you a kind of.
No, I mean the future of these devices, it's unbelievable to me, and I think that because everything is going cloud based, and because you're not storing anything, the potential for lower powered devices to be able to be powerful devices, it's actually amazing. I really do think that's where we're headed. But currently, Microsoft is still selling these devices. Sony's still selling the PS4, and it's the old way of doing things. But will that change with this generation of consoles? Will we see a shift? Will we see Xbox, Live Cloud, where the games are all stored on the cloud?
Yeah, so we're sort of seeing that shift, right? I mean, one of the ways we see the shift is the ability, and this started with the previous gen, but you can buy games online, right, over the console. I did this with the PS4. I downloaded Ghost, which is a huge game. It took forever to download, but it's a little sophisticated in the sense that it said, hey, do you want multiplayer first or single player? Because we can download that one first. And I said multiplayer, and it let me play the multiplayer game before the single player game had finished downloading. It's smart. I mean, they're really two separate games, but that was smart. The big difference between the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 versus 360 PS3 is that you get those day one games on day one. You don't have to wait a few months or whatever. That's a big deal. And so that's kind of cool. Xbox One has this notion of, they're not really calling it Windows Azure, but let's just call it Windows Azure, kind of a back end where they have like this, basically a cloud data center that developers can take advantage of to make their games more compute heavy. Get the compute stuff off of the device, and I think that's a step toward the cloud, because eventually I think most of it's going to be there. That the thing that you see on your screen is just going to be the pixels, right? And obviously the sound would be transmitted as well, but you don't have to have that compute power in front of you. You could be on a thin client. You could be on a tablet, a phone, whatever.
A lot of people are asking me right now, actually, on
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook and on Twitter,
right?
Will we see the Xbox or Sony incorporate cable television as far as a tuner goes? I know that there's something for sale in Europe for the Xbox, and they're planning on releasing this tuner card for the Xbox in Europe, but do you think we're going to start seeing that happen, where this is your actual cable box?
I had that dream with the 360, and like you said, it does happen apparently in some places. I don't see any reason why not, other than cable industry lack of interest in giving the keys to the kingdom to Microsoft or Sony. It's notable, perhaps, that neither one of these machines is like cable card based, right? They didn't create either one as a way that could function like that directly, right? Like a TiVo can do that. That kind of suggests to me that either that is too costly or complex or whatever, or that they feel like the future of entertainment is not.
It's IP.
Yeah, is IP, not cable based. So,
I mean, I guess with Verizon, I think Time Warner 2, you could watch whatever limited amount of channels on the Xbox. So that kind of works too.
I knew someone who had a turntable in the dashboard of their car. And so you could play a record as you drove around, which is not a great experience because, you go over bumps and it skips. And I think, like a cable tuner card in an old Media Center PC from almost 10 years ago, or actually literally 10 years ago, or this Xbox 360 type solution is probably something like that, where it's understandable why people want it, because that's the way we consume TV today. But the truth is that the content that we consume is, the way we get it is changing. And I think these consoles maybe are looking to that, not to the stuff that we do, that we're still doing, but is kind of a legacy technology.
No, a lot of it is changing. It really is. Hey, I did want to bring this up. So last week I was talking about the iPad Air. Mm-hmm. My God, my allergies are killing me. I got something in my eye. Oh, my eye. This is really bad.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. It was just the way you said it.
Can't even talk. Wow, that's really bad. My allergies are kicking in really bad now. I can barely see.
You're allergic to podcasts.
I think that's what it is. There's something in this room because this eye is like swelling shut. I'm going to do the show like this now. I don't know if you guys could see me.
Nice.
My God, my eyes are tearing really bad. Last week, I kind of said I don't really see a tremendous difference between the second gen, iPad 2 and the iPad Air. Mm-hmm. I kind of have to take that back. I've been using this thing a lot more this past week. And you know what? Popping in and out of apps, going from Twitter to Facebook to Google to playing a game, there really is a difference. You're really starting to see...
You're talking about like a performance difference.
Like a performance difference, yeah.
So it's similar to the PlayStation 4 thing, right? I mean, it is interesting how freeing that feels. That you don't notice it on the older stuff, that there's a weight. Well, actually, I do notice it on the 360, but oftentimes you don't really notice it. Sometimes it takes the newer, faster thing to make you realize, God, how did I put up with that thing for so long?
Yeah, and I didn't really notice it in the beginning because I guess I wasn't using it a lot. My God, look at me. Do you see me on camera? Look at my eyes. Look like I just smoked a joint. It's like my eyes are just red and small. I didn't really notice it, but I did use like Flipboard, for example. That's graphics heavy, and it feels sluggish at times on the iPad 2, but on the iPad Air, like it's instantaneous. I mean, it's really simple things like that. I'm not talking about gaming. Obviously, you're going to see a difference with that, but just using just everyday apps, there's a big difference. So I kind of have to take that back. After using this for another week, I am noticing significant difference in the speed and the performance. But, this is another example. We're talking about gaming. We're talking about the evolution of these things. This should be the ultimate gaming platform for a majority of people.
I think it already is.
It already is, but not in the living room. And that's what's holding it back. I think that's what's, when we talk about the competition between Sony and Wii and Nintendo.
The only thing I'm sort of weird about even saying this because I don't want to sound like I'm endorsing this, but you can almost imagine the typical American / whatever first world country you want to name household after dinner. And, one kid's sitting with his legs over the chairs and over the arms of the chair with his device. And the mother is maybe reading a Kindle book on her Kindle on the corner of the couch, and the father's doing something on his laptop, and a kid's laying on the floor, and he's got his own screen, and they're not really paying attention to each other. And they could be playing games, they could be reading, they could be doing, but it doesn't matter what they're doing. But when it comes time to put something on the big screen, it's more of a community thing. And the one thing we're not going to do together, unless we're talking about like a Wii style kind of family game, is play games, right? I'm not going to let my son start a racing game or a zombie game or a shooter game on the living room HD TV while we're all sitting there. Like, that's completely unacceptable. But if someone wanted to watch a TV show or a movie, that's the type of activity that I think is a little more common. And I don't know that. I mean, have you ever done that kind of iPad thing where you can, play a game and you use AirPlay to put it up on the screen, and it's a racing game or whatever, and it's on the big screen, but you're touching the screen down here to play it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not
great, but it's not great at all. But I do think that they're missing something. Apple could be in my opinion, it could be a dominant player in the console world if they figured out a way
Apple does it.
How does Apple
do it? You'll as soon as I say this, you'll agree that this is how they'll do it. Everyone in your house has to have an iDevice. That's the app. That's the key.
Okay. Which a lot of people do.
What you have is this system where you can all be playing the same game, and you're interacting with your own devices and with the big screen, possibly through an Apple TV. And I'm trying to imagine that scenario, but it could be a racing game with a split screen. It could be a family game like a Yahtzee or a Scrabble or whatever, where you see your tiles on your screen and the game board is up on the big screen. And, the smarts to it is the interactive nature of this app that you purchase that runs on everyone's devices and knows about the other devices in the room, knows about the Apple TV, and this stuff all works together.
Absolutely.
And that would be the Apple approach, right?
And it would be a great approach. It's unique. It's different. These devices, a lot of people,
I should patent this before they start selling it.
But you know what? I don't think they understand it yet. I don't think
I bet they do.
I'm surprised we haven't seen anything. I mean, it's 7 generations into its operating system. We're at iOS 7, and they are just allowing third-party controllers to kind of work in the operating system. That it took them 7 years. I think this is
a very logical progression, and Apple is the one company that has the sell-through to have a multi-device household where every individual in the family has it, and it's not hard to imagine these games. I mean, I just don't. I'm not sure there's a huge market for it. I guess that's the only issue. I mean, when you look at the stuff that other people are doing, like Microsoft or Amazon does this as well, probably others, there's a second screen experience. I'm going to rent a movie, I'm going to play the movie up on the big screen, and on my laptop, I'm going to see information about each of the characters or whatever it may be. I think that's more of a mainstream entertainment thing. I mean, I'm not sure multi-person gaming. I don't know. In the house, I'm not sure it's a big market.
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe I'm the exception. Maybe I'm one of the few people.
What you're looking for is like the Wii.
I want the Wii. Okay, perfect example though. Okay,
I want to swing my iPhone instead of that nunchuck thing.
No, I don't want to use the iPhone. That's the thing. I want to use a controller. I'll give you an example. On Xbox Live on the PC, you had that game Johnny Rocket or whatever, the jetpack, whatever.
Okay. Where
the guy's on a jetpack and he's collecting the coins.
Side scroller.
Yeah. So it's on. That game exists on every platform known to man. Yes. A game like that would work on the TV.
But how would you play it?
With a controller.
With an actual controller.
With an actual controller.
Okay, but what's the controller connected to?
Whatever device it's. Let's say on iOS, let's say on the Apple front, it would connect to the iOS device that you have.
Yeah. By the way, I love this kind of thing. the problem is, like, you've got companies like Sony and Microsoft, and also not Steam. Who owns Steam?
Valve.
Valve.
The Ouya. I mean, they're doing it too.
They want to own the whole thing. I think the advantage, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but in some ways the advantage of this Apple thing I envision is that it allows the game makers to create their stuff on someone else's network, in a sense. It's not really an Apple network, but on Apple's platform, and on competing platforms, I would imagine. But, I don't know. I don't know enough about this. I'm trying to imagine what the differences are. When you're in Call of Duty on PSN versus Call of Duty on Xbox Live, like what might those differences be? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting a tremendous difference, but I mean, there's room. When you have, like, when Apple has the most matured ecosystem compared to everybody else at this point.
Yep.
Android is still Android,
that's why I think they could do this first.
Yeah, it's still a mess. Windows Phone and the Windows. What is Windows Phone? And I guess, what are they calling it on Windows 8? Their marketplace, just marketplace. It's still not.
It's Windows Store.
Windows Store. Okay, so Windows Store in general.
You're right. This thing needs a name badly, and Metro was a great name, but. Yeah, Windows Store.
So Windows Store is not matured at all. A lot of applications are missing in that section. So iOS has the most mature system, and most mature ecosystem. They have the ability. They can put all these games, have the developers develop it for the big screen, and allow people to play it on there. A game like what is that? Infinity Blade 3, whatever it is. That would be a great game on the big TV.
Yeah,
I would love that. It's simple enough. I'm just swiping away, or I could use a controller and do it that way. But
that's also a graphically intense game, right? So what's driving the graphics that pushes them up to the big screen? Is it your little iPod Touch?
Yeah, see, that's where the problem is.
That might be the problem, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm dying here.
I mean, but again, these things are going to the cloud. I mean, it's going to happen. On Live and other companies are working on that, and Microsoft was rumored to have been working on it for Xbox One. That stuff's going to happen. It will happen.
We got 5 minutes, guys. I know a lot of you had questions for Paul, so why don't you send me your questions, and I'll ask Paul the questions while we're talking now. My allergies
Stop talking about the future. I'm so bad at that.
I love that. I love talking about the future. I do. I like speculating, and I like guessing.
Right into it, like it's no problem.
Yeah. I know what's going to happen. Flying cars, Paul. That's what's happening.
I was promised flying cars, and where have they? Where have they gone?
In the year 2000, we were supposed to have it, and they never showed up.
I know, it's disappointing.
Yeah. While you guys are sending questions for us, for me to ask Paul, I want to ask you guys or suggest you guys, if you want to support the GFQ network, we do donations, but we're not asking for donations. What we do ask is, if you're buying stuff on Amazon, which I know a lot of people are for the holiday season, if you're buying stuff on Amazon, use our Amazon link. We get a tiny little portion from every sale. And it really helps us out every time we need to do an upgrade. When we upgrade our cameras and we need to change a microphone, we use our Amazon link, the money that we've built up in that, to purchase all this stuff. You could do it by going to gfq.co/Amazon. That's gfq.co/Amazon, or using our little Amazon tab on the side. If you're watching live, you could just click on that. If you go to our website, gfqnetwork.com, we have a little Amazon button there too. You could click on that too. And we got a tiny little portion. So I want to thank you guys for supporting it. I'm going to use the Amazon affiliate link to buy allergy medication. This is really bad. I'm having a lot of trouble here,
something
guys.
A little quicker than that.
I'm having a lot of trouble here. Let me scroll up and see the questions. Andrew is, I guess for Paul, is Windows Media Center dead?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, not officially, but I think when they brought it forward to Windows 8 and really didn't change it at all, that was the first sign that, yeah. I mean, and in keeping with the discussion we just had about the future versus the past, I think connecting to cable systems, however you do it, is the past, and the stuff they're doing now with Xbox One is the future. There's a feature in the Xbox One, I don't know what they call it exactly, but it's the guide, basically, a smart guide, whatever, where you can combine things into the guide that are not TV channels, and it gives you this notion like there'll be a Netflix channel sort of. It's not really what's on now, so it's not a direct analog to what you would traditionally see in a guide, but it gives you this kind of a presentation where old and new are kind of mixed. And I mean, my gut tells me that it's dead, but I don't know anything about it exactly.
Paul, where do you keep your Lumia 1520 when you're walking around?
I know it's so. Actually, so you probably it's gonna be hard to see because it's for some reason it's so dark in here all of a sudden. But it does fit in a pocket, so you can kind of see how it's kind of fits in the pocket. But you can feel the weight of it. You can almost like it's gonna drag it down. I have been putting it in my front pocket, which is incredibly uncomfortable. I would never put it in a back pocket. I kind of enjoyed Mary Jo Foley's review of the device. She said, guys that are freaked by the size of this thing and don't want to put it in a pocket should, man up and get a Merce.
Is that a Lumia in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Will Nokia be releasing smart covers for their smaller phones?
I've never heard. I can understand why they did it for this one because it's an incredible device for video. I copied I've only ripped like 2 or 3 Blu-rays in my entire life. One of them, well, it doesn't matter which ones they are, but I copied a 1080p file that I ripped a couple years ago. Probably it's like 3.69 gigabytes. It's humongous to this device, and watched part of it just to kind of look at the video quality because it's a 1080p device, and it is awesome. It is really nice.
Apparently, Paul, they showed off the new Nokia 2520 on MacBreak Weekly. Andy Inako got one.
Well, apparently he did that before his NDA expired, so he shouldn't have done that.
Let's see what else. I'm trying to scroll up here. I need a better way to screen these questions. I really have to figure out a way to do it. That was a good one, then I lost it. I totally lost it. They said, are Windows 8 apps coming to Xbox One?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say there is, obviously technically speaking, it's possible. Windows 8 apps are designed for multi-touch, and Xbox One apps are designed for gestures and voice and a hand controller, and so they're not always going to make a lot of sense. But if you look at a game like Halo Spartan Assault for Windows 8 and Windows Phone, you kind of see this notion of here's a game that supports multiple forms of interaction. You can use a hand controller, you can use touch, keyboard, mouse, and all that kind of stuff. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they, in their cross-platform work, they enable developers to write apps and games that supported multiple input types and could work across the platforms. But I don't know explicitly whether they're actually doing that or not. So.
Your opinion on the HP Spectre? Spectre?
Oh, this is the laptop.
Yeah, X2.
Spectre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not used it. I'm sorry, but I mean, most of the HP portable computers are actually pretty nice. So they have Ultrabooks, and then these things that run the AMD platform. So they call them like sleep. They call them sleep books or something, or some name that's like Ultrabooks. But I've never actually used any of these devices for any amount of time, so I apologize. I don't really know that much about it.
So a couple things before we wrap up. Paul and I were discussing, we are planning on doing a phone call show.
A phone call show?
Yeah, we're going to take callers. People are going to be able to call in and talk to us. Now, I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. The calls are going to be screened, so
act nice on the phone.
Act proper. I don't know how. I have a concept on how we're going to do it. Now, it all depends on a couple things, obviously, but I'm planning on doing it next month as a tester. And if it works, it may be something that we incorporate in the coming, for the new year, as maybe we could do it once a month where we do, it's going to be Skype also. We're going to take Skype and phone calls.
Wow.
I could do it now, but the problem is I can't screen it. And I feel that with this show, it should be screened.
Right.
Because I know for a fact we're going to get phone calls to say, hey, Andrew, F you, and then hang up. Or we're going to get people calling in and saying, I have a Windows 98 laptop that I'm trying to put Windows 7 on. How do I do it, Paul? So those aren't going to work either. So we're coming up with a concept. I'm working on a system now. So next month we'll do a test of, to see how it works. And if it works, if you guys are calling in, if people are interested, it might be something that we're going to continue doing for the new year. If it doesn't work, you know what? We tried it. Maybe we should drink, Paul, for that show.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we should drink. Caller, you're on the air. Yeah. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Right.
I'm going to have the hiccups. It'll be a whole thing. So,
shoot going for that show.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll do that. Paul, also, talk about your book. People could get your new book. People could donate to your new book.
Yeah, so we talked about this, did we? I think we talked about this last week or whenever. But yeah, Rafael Rivera and I are writing a Windows 8.1 book, which is yet to be named. So we're just kind of calling it Windows 8.1 book for the time. And you can go to Windows81book.com and we update it at least once a week. I try to update 2 or 3 times a week as far as actual book content. And the goal is to finish the kind of 1.0 version of the book by very end of the year, early part of next year. And then, keep going with it. I mean, I want the book to be as comprehensive and useful as it possibly can be. And I would like to get feedback from people. I want to hear what they want out of the book, how it could be improved, what it's missing and so forth. And it's kind of an app model where our suggested price for it is just $2, but you're welcome to pay any price, including no price at all if you don't feel like paying for it.
I donated $20.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, I have to say I've been pretty impressed by. I don't actually. Maybe there might be a way to go look. I don't actually know, but people will write in and they'll say, "Hey, I forgot to, bookmark the download link. Here's my receipt." And a lot of these people are paying a lot more than $2, and it's weird. I mean, it's nice, obviously, but it's I kind of feel odd asking for money, although I shouldn't. I guess I'm working on it, but it's it's been nice. I mean, it's nice to see that kind of thing. What I'd like to get out of this a little bit more is a little bit more on the feedback side, and I do have a couple people who provided me with copious amounts of feedback, but I'd like to turn it into more of a conversation type of thing where we're going back and forth on improving the book. And we have different ideas about layouts and ways to make it look really pretty and how different presentation that we can do and different ways you can consume the book, not just Kindle and Nook and PDF and things like that, but also, web interfaces and websites and mobile apps and all kinds of different stuff. And so we have lots of ideas, but, there's kind of a finite amount of time. So.
And it's also the first time you're doing this, so you're learning as you're doing it.
Yeah, a lot of learning. So anyway, it's Windows81book.com. There'll be more books too. I mean, we'll do more books. But
also, everything Paul Thurrott, winsupersite.com. Paul Paul's gonna be on again on the GFQ Network this week.
What am I doing? Oh yeah,
2 times you're gonna get Paul on the GFQ Network.
Yes.
Paul's gonna be doing the IIB Spotlight with me on Friday at 1 p.m. East. We're gonna be discussing internet broadcasting. So we did the Paul, This Is Your Life.
Yes.
Saga, 2 episodes of that. This time we're going to be talking exclusively on his podcasting career and where he sees it's going. And
yes,
because Paul, we've spoken off the air about podcasting and internet broadcasting, and a couple times we brought it up on this show, but we've never really done like a show based on it with you. So Paul's going to be a guest on the IIB Spotlight. That's 1 p.m. East here on the GFQ Network. You can watch live, gfqlive.tv. Also, if you miss any portion of the show, you can subscribe to us. We're on Windows Phone. We're on iTunes. We're everywhere podcasts are available. Audio and video is available on all these platforms. You can subscribe to us by going there, or of course, you can go to gfqnetwork.com and watch the show there. And of course, it's on winsupersite.com. You can watch the show there. I think we are able to get the show up and running within 2 hours from the time that we finished the show. Wow. So by around 7 o'clock, the show is edited, posted, it's available if there are no hiccups here and there. So it's a new record. I'm trying to bring it down to an hour. Paul did buy a new car. He got a Beamer. People are asking, did Paul get a new car?
Yeah. Well, I didn't buy a new one. I bought a used.
A new used one. It's a 76. BMW.
It's
3
it's
Series.
not that used, but it is absolutely used. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, guys. We'll see you all next week. Send us your emails, guysfromqueens@gmail.com. Of course, you can send them to Paul. You can follow me on Twitter @AndrewZarian. You can follow Paul @Thurrott. And that's it, guys. We're done for this week. We'll see you all next week on What the Tuck. Good night, everybody.